Welcome to the Norwood Conservation Commission meeting on Wednesday, October 16th. If anyone has a recording device present, please let us know. Have open roll call.
Peter Bamber.
Jody Maria.
Steve Washburn.
Cheryl Doyle.
John Gill.
Al Getz.
All right, call the meeting to order. First on the agenda tonight, sign extension of order of conditions. Town of Norwood, DEP file number 251-0485, Norwood number 2017-03. Project location is Access Road in Norwood. Pass this one around in case anyone doesn't have one. Is it okay to keep rolling or wait until?
No, you keep rolling.
Yeah.
You keep rolling.
Cool. All right, next on the agenda, sign extension of order of conditions. Norwood number N2018-07, project location is 429 Neponset Street in Norwood.
Yep.
All right, next on the agenda, we'll have
The one that worked?
I don't have anything tonight.
our treasurer's report. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we'll have conservation agent's report. When you're ready, Al.
Okay. First thing is that I went to the basin at BJ's Gas when they were working on the maintenance and repair. And the first picture shows a guy working there, and he's putting down erosion control mats, which get stapled down. And that was one day. A week later, I went back, and if you look at the picture closely, the grass is starting to grow through the mat. Okay, there's little bits of green showing, and the grass is growing. That's a week later than this picture. Okay. So then we have the rainstorm last weekend, and since I was going to be up in New York visiting my grandchildren, I asked Cheryl to make a visit after the rains had stopped. And she went there at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, and this is what she saw.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, and what you see there is there's water, and you don't see the beehive drain in the middle. It's covered with water. Okay, and then yesterday I visited at 11:30, and the water is still there. And the black filter fabric is floating.
Sure, yep.
And if you look closely right here, you can see the the erosion control stuff is floating. So now that's, I believe the rain stopped sometime on Saturday.
It did.
So it,
Yeah, early in the day.
Yes.
yeah.
I was out hiking
Just-
by 11.
And my rain gauge shows a ½ inch of rain in one rain gauge, and the other one was a little bit over ½ inch, and that was for the whole weekend, okay? So we didn't have a heck of a lot of rain, but enough to fill this up. Now, I will go there probably either Thursday, tomorrow at noontime if the rain has stopped, if not on Friday when the rain has stopped, and see what the progress has been. So even though they've worked hard, it hasn't
worked.
it hasn't really drained down. Now, you know, the calculations and what shows in our order is it's supposed to drain down in 36 hours. Now, personally, I wouldn't care if it took 40 hours or 50 hours if it drained down. But the fact is, it isn't draining down in 40 or 50 hours even. So we'll see what happens after this storm. If this storm is as big as they are forecasting, then it's anybody's guess how much water is going to be in there. But it's still not working. I have another piece of, and I think you have a copy from Susan Clare. Remember last year there was some question about where the money went when they collect $25. And there are some people that don't have any money, so, you know, she's a little flexible on, and I think she said there were 12 people didn't pay this year because they couldn't afford it. So the total income this year was $1,500, and they spent $1,325 to operate there, which she outlined pretty clearly for you. So I think that explains where the money goes and what it's used for. And this weekend is their cleanup weekend at the garden. We had an inspection at the dam last week, and you know that every 2 years we have to have it inspected. And the outcome of the inspection is, first of all, the low-level gates work. They were exercised and the water comes out and they close and open. Okay, there was no problem with that. So that part's okay. They were, I think, favorably impressed with the maintenance of the grounds down on the downslope between the dam and the highway. It looks good. And the grass is growing well. However, there is one problem that we will have to deal with. It'll be in the report, but we'll have to deal with it. Near the spillway and the gates, the riprap on the pond side, some of it has slid into the pond. There's a stretch of about, I'm going to say about 20 feet of the bank. Where you walk is fine, you don't notice anything. But if you look, the stones have slid down into the pond, and there's a place where I had a folding old carpenter's rule, and he was able to stick 3 feet in under the walkway where the stones had slid out. So we'll have to have a contractor with a machine get some stones and put some stones back in and push them in there. But that's something that'll show up in the report, I'm sure.
Is there any reason when they built that, you know, how they podged the top of it, why they didn't go down the face of it at all?
that's not the way they usually do it,
Oh,
so
okay.
this is the way it was done, that's the way it was designed. The stones that are mortared on the top, that was more for pedestrians not slipping and tripping on them and moving them into the water.
Mhm.
And we put some chicken wire on there once, and the reason for the chicken wire was we were experimenting with fighting the geese. The geese didn't pay any attention to it, and they walked over it anyway, so that was a failure, and we'll have to have Public Works pick up some of that. It's a tripping hazard in a couple of spots.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so, but generally speaking, both of the guys that were doing the inspection felt that we were in pretty good shape there. So that was done last week. And it was a rainy day, and they were doing it in the rain. Didn't bother anybody. I walked around with them for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And, they were happy enough, I think. Okay, I think that takes care of what I've got to say for tonight.
I have a question for Al. Al, at the Wendy's, as I drive by, it looks like between the stockade fence and the open space on the upper side, looks like there's a pile of dirt.
Oh, there's a couple of piles of stuff
Is that properly?
It's not moving. I looked at it today.
Well, if it's open, shouldn't it be have riprap around it or something to
Well,
keep water from
Yeah,
dirt from sloshing down?
it's mostly the stone with a little stuff in it, but it isn't moving. If you walk there, they have a machine right beside it, and the area between the pile and the grass is pretty clean. I
What is
wasn't-
that material? Do we know what that's
I
from?
wasn't
or-
too concerned about it. It's not going anywhere.
Well, it actually shouldn't be there, right?
Well, eventually it's going to go away, but not until they.
It's not in the plan, and it's not a storage area that was on the plan.
I'll see what we can
So
do
the least
about
they can
that.
do is make sure that it's properly
Secured.
secured as if it were on the plan. The other thing I have a question for is, does the detention basin seem to hold all of the water in a heavy rain that it's supposed to and not overflow?
Oh, it hasn't come anywhere near overflowing. You know, when they were working there,
Yeah.
they were pumping it out. It wouldn't go out by itself. It didn't overflow anywhere. And I suppose we'd have to be concerned if we got one of these storms that we see on the TV of a foot of, several feet of rain. That's unusual, but I think if we got something like that, it'd be overflowing. But at the present time, the kind of storms we've had, after 2 or 3 inches, hasn't even come close to coming up. It hasn't come up.
Well, it's supposed to be designed for the 100-year storm.
Yeah.
is in
Okay.
fact-
So this is the area. That's the area that they planted grass, and it grew very nicely. And I don't think all last summer the water came up any higher than that line. And that there was no evidence that it ever came above that, and that's why the grass didn't grow down further.
What I'm concerned is that it running off downhill into the parking lot that's adjacent.
Well, I think if it goes downhill, it's going to go into the wetland and not the parking lot. The low part is towards the the wetland at the bottom of the.
Towards Summer Street.
Yeah, that's the way the site is.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite possibly.
The side, the area towards the parking lot is much higher than this basin.
I'm talking about the parking lot that's south of this,
The old 19.
the old building 19.
Yeah.
It is lower than this
Well,
site.
that parking lot,
Yeah.
but the berm here makes the water, if it filled up enough to overflow, it goes and it's swaled towards the
It
wetland.
swells and then it goes downhill goes downhill to the fence. And there's only about 4 to 6 inches of swale where the fence is. That's along the edge of that parking lot at building 19.
Well, it was built according to the plan that we approved. And the sloping of the ground directs it to the wetland, not to the parking lot. It wouldn't go there.
We'll know in the spring.
It's clear that they're making a lot of effort to try to correct the issue, but
Yeah,
I still wonder what the true groundwater elevation is at that site.
well, I think that the groundwater elevation is different in different parts of that site.
Hmm.
I think up near Wendy's, the groundwater level is higher than this basin.
Yeah.
I think the groundwater moves like that. And I don't think they considered that when they designed it, and that's. And
Might be
the,
paying for it now, yeah.
and the engineers that are still thinking that they can make this design work, so we'll see what, but they are working at it and they're making an effort.
Okay, and you'll see about that small stockpile that Joe mentioned.
Yeah,
and so-
I'll see about that.
Cool.
I have one more thing.
Sure, Joe.
I am not getting anything in my email, so could you please make sure that copies of the minutes and anything else that we need to review is mailed directly? I have talked to the department here that's in charge, and they said they're looking into it, but there hasn't been a change all week. Up until the beginning of the week, I could not gain access.
When I get something, I'll just forward it to you till they fix it.
Well, I can't, I mean, I've tried to send something to myself and it doesn't go through, and the last thing I have is dated sometime last May.
Oh, geez.
There's nothing gone in to that box since last May.
So you're just showing up blind to the meetings without it?
And that's why I
Yeah.
depend on having a,
Yeah, the physical. Understood. Okay. Sure.
Al, can we go back to the community garden
Yeah,
part? I know a lot of people in passing have mentioned how, I mean, it's great, the garden, what they're doing, and that it's a community thing, but there have been a few people that have made a suggestion that maybe it should be raised beds to have it a little bit neater looking and to control the weeds. And since we're a bigger group than what they are, I was wondering if this board would be okay if we got a price for the lumber to do raised beds for them from the lumber yard that the town has a contract with, just to investigate it. And then if it's reasonably priced, do raised beds for them before they start gardening in the spring and maybe help them out a little bit. Because a lot of the gardens, even in the city and other towns, they're done by raised beds.
So this
And they're
is like,
very neat.
It doesn't hurt to investigate it, certainly doesn't hurt to get pricing or any of those things. But also we're gonna have to pay to have a contract to fix the dam too, so.
Well,
But that's a separate
I
fund.
have a problem with raised
Oh, okay,
beds.
all right.
Myself, but, first of all, we
I know.
wouldn't use treated lumber, we'd use regular lumber, which rots. And
Why wouldn't you use treated?
Chemicals?
chemicals that would get into the vegetables, especially the root vegetables, and that's not a recommendation.
Even the new treated stuff?
Yeah,
You
'Cause-
can't use any treated
Because the
lumber
new treated stuff
whatsoever.
doesn't have any arsenic in it, it's copper oxide.
yeah.
But it's any chemical will saturate into the plants.
So at any rate,
Okay.
we shouldn't be using pressure-treated lumber of any kind. And that means that the raised beds would have a short lifetime.
Well, there's a,
But the other issue, I've experimented with raised beds. And the big issue for me was that it's fine in the early spring because it drains quickly and it thaws out quicker. But once the rain stops in the spring, it dries out very quickly because it's higher than the surrounding area. And that means that if you have a raised bed and you want to grow something that needs a lot of moisture, you're going to have to water it almost every day. My son tried it and he failed up there in New York, and where he is, he's going to try it again, but he's going to use cement blocks for the edge, and that's very expensive. He's going to try it for one bed. But the soils there are very high clay. They're nice and dark and brown, but they're like paste in the spring until the end of June and sometimes even into July. And so he's trying raised beds to allow the organic matter in the part he's using to be more pervious. However, once it dries, the stuff that he has becomes like cement. So I'm not convinced that on a large scale, raised beds the answer. Now, we tried at that site a raised bed for a handicapped person. And the handicapped person stopped using it by the middle of the first summer. He decided that it was too hard a task.
That's a really high raised bed.
Yeah.
Raised bed, I mean,
Well,
like
it's
only about
but
yay
it-
big. Mine's, I
Yeah,
have raised
yeah.
beds for my vegetable gardens, but mine are only this high up.
Yeah,
They're not very big, it's just a plank, and I do them 4x8s and do them, and I don't have any problem.
Just explore
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't mean the regular, like you see
Well, that
raised
one
beds.
for him was for him
That
in
one
a
was
wheelchair.
huge, yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't succeed.
there is a wood that is less expensive than mahogany that resists water. It's a natural wood
From South America.
from
Yeah,
South America.
yeah.
I forget the name of it, but I have a
It
folder
makes
on
good
it
decking.
someplace. Yeah, it makes great decking and,
I pay. I pay.
like, yeah, that sounds good.
All right, I'll just investigate, then I'll come back to you guys.
Oh, it's a great idea.
So do you have, what do you have, 50 or 60 gardeners there?
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of raised beds.
Oops,
It
sorry.
would,
for
but
you.
if we could spruce it a little bit and then make it more in line and give it more continuity, you know, because our little apple trees are nicely 20 feet apart.
Ducks in a
It's
row.
a nice grid. And we've got complete control over the poison ivy in the orchard now. There is no poison ivy out there at all. It's just a nice
Nice grass.
lawn. It is a very nice lawn. No chemicals, no nothing.
Once the raised beds are created and framed out, you use like a clean topsoil or growing material to backfill that space that you've created?
Well,
Is that
whatever
good?
you have,
Yeah, cool.
whatever's available. And the town gives them plenty of compost, you know, so the soils there are pretty good.
Mhm.
But it also grows weeds. And raised beds grow weeds too, if you don't pull them every couple of
It'd
days.
certainly make the garden look better from an aerial image. Every time I see it in ortho imagery, I think it just looks, it's like undefined and
Yeah.
what have you. Doesn't really matter, but yeah. That's a fine idea. So is that all we had for the conservation agent?
Yeah.
All right, next on the agenda, CPC representative report.
Well, I'm sure, as you guys know, the Saint Street lot got approved at town
Did see
meeting.
that, yeah.
It has the conservation deed restriction, and they'll go through the paperwork, selectmen buy it, and then it's turned over to the conservation. So,
Seems like great news. Saw some nice pictures from that space recently that made me feel all the better about that, yeah. Anything else, Shaw? All right, next on the agenda, proposal of future agenda items. Does anyone have anything they'd like added to the next agenda?
nope, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks very much.